A big surprise is about to come out, a booth man who made old houses look awesome on TV. For many months, fans have been watching and wondering if the person they trust might leave the show forever. Kevin Connor didn't say anything while people talked more and more about it, but now he's finally ready to tell us what really happened. And it all starts with something nobody expected. For a long time, people wondered if Kevin O'Connor would stay on this old house. Everywhere he went, people asked the same question. Was he going to leave? Was the show going to lose the guy who made it feel so good to watch? Nobody knew, for sure. Kevin never came out to give everyone a clear answer. Instead, he started doing things that made people talk even more. People started seeing him in new places. He was talking at big meetings, standing in front of lots of people, talking about how to be a good leader and the smart things you can learn from fixing old houses, and he went doing it just for fun. The stocks paid him anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000 each time. That much money meant lots of people wanted to hear what he had to say, not just on TV. At the same time, he was getting into other parts of the building world. He went to big meetings with company bosses and people will build houses, giving advice on how to make companies bigger or fix up old buildings. He was becoming someone people trusted to help with really buy things. When you looked at everything together, it seemed like Kevin was starting something totally new. He wasn't just the TV host anymore. He was becoming a real expert, a leader, maybe someone super famous in the whole building business. The TV show Hazelway's been about making things better. It takes something old and broken and makes it new again. For 20 years, Kevin stood right in the middle of all that change. He helped turn this old house into something fresh, something ready for new people to watch. He didn't just keep it going. He helped it grow to TV, computers, and building sites of everywhere. But if you really want to know how he got here, you have to start with the part of his life most people didn't know about. The part that started in a house that always needed to be fixed. Before cameras followed him around everywhere, Kevin O'Connor was just a regular kid in Maplewood, New Jersey. He was born in 1968 or 1969 into a family that knew how to build things from nothing. His dad was a person who designs roads and bridges, and their house was always being worked on. While other kids played catch outside, Kevin and his brothers carried wood boards and mixed concrete. By the time he was in elementary school, he could read house plans and measure boards all by himself. It wasn't always fun, but it taught him things he would use his whole life. When he was 19, everything changed. He was training with the Army when he started fainting over and over. Doctors found out he had a heart problem. They couldn't promise it wouldn't get worse. Even weirder, the medical papers of Booth's tests and what was wrong disappeared. Nobody knew where they went. Losing those papers bothered him for years. And since he couldn't join the Army anymore, he needed a new plan. So he went to school instead. In 1986, he finished at St. Benedict's Preparatory School in Newark. It was a school that made Yao work really hard. That hard work helped him get into the College of the Holy Cross, where he studied history and got his degree in 1990, even though history didn't seem like it would lead to a building show. It taught him how to explain things clearly. He learned how to take hard ideas and make them easy for anyone to understand. After that, he got his MBA at Boston University. With all that school behind him, he started working at big companies with confidence. First, he worked at Fleet Bank, where he helped pay for sports stadiums. Then he moved to Bank of America. Pretty soon, he was a senior vice president taking care of accounts worth millions of dollars. He was making six figures, getting promoted, and building a life most people would want. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But inside, Kevin still felt pulled toward something he couldn't. Chickner. In 2003, he and his wife Kathleen bought a Queen Anne Victorian house in Beverly, Massachusetts. It looked really nice. But the second they moved in, problems started everywhere. Every room needed to be fixed. The kitchen, the bathrooms, the bedrooms, nothing was okay. But the wallpaper, worst part, had been put on and painted so many times it was like trying to peel concrete off the walls. They spent hours scraping and tearing, but it barely helped at all. As a last try to get help, they sent an email to Thepipool at this old house, hoping for a tip that might save them from going crazy. What Kevin didn't know was HGTV people were planning a new show called Ask This Old House. His timing couldn't have been better. The email got their attention, but it wasn't just luck that put him in front of the cameras. Kevin had something nobody else did. A real honest way of asking questions that made the experts want to help. When the TV crew came to his Victorian house, he thought it was just a friendly visit. He didn't know it was actually a test. They filmed him while he worked and asked about the wallpaper problem that had been driving him crazy. Even when that camera stopped rolling, he couldn't stop asking questions. At lunch, Hef allowed Tom Silva around, asking him idea after idea and worry after worry. Tom could barely eat his food before Kevin asked something else. The Thepipool were watching everything. They saw that he wasn't just curious, he was natural. He had the same excited wonder that viewers felt when they tried to fix their own homes. When the filming ended, Kevin felt like he just had the best day ever. He was so excited, he asked to take a picture with the crew. He told them he probably wouldn't see them again and wanted something to remember it by. Beautifully, 3 weeks later, a phone call came that would change his life. He was sitting in his Bank of America office one. The phone rang. He thought it was Simeon he worked with, but instead it was the people who made this old house. They asked if he would like to host the show, not just the new spin-off, but the original show too. Kevin couldn't believe it. He thought someone was playing a joke on him. Even after he realized they were serious, he still wasn't sure this was real. He told his boss at the bank he might be back in a year, just in case it all fell apart. People knew what they were doing. They had already been through 2 very different and dramatic host changes. Bob Vila, the first host, had made the show famous, but he had also made choices that caused trouble. Bob Vila had started in 1979 when nobody thought home-fixing shows could be good. TV. He helped build this old house into something millions of people watched, but Walethe's show got bigger. Bob's paycheck stayed small. At the start, he made just $200 per episode. Even after 10 years, he was only making $800 per episode. Over his whole time on the show, he earned less than some house builders made in 1 year. When Bob signed a hug deal to advertise for Rickle Home Centers, it caused problems with the show's main sponsor, Home Depot. PB told him he had to pick one or Theo. Bob chose the money. He got fired and he didn't even hear it from the TV pool. His agent learned it from a newspaper story. After Bob left, Steve Thomas took over. He was different, quieter, more careful, and he stayed for 14 years. He even won an Emmy in 1998. But in 2003, he disappeared from the show. No goodbye episode, no big send-off, just a short message about how wanted to go sailing and skiing. Fans are confused. Nobody really knew why he left. With all that history, the Thepipool knew their next pick had to be special, someone honest, someone fresh, someone who could earn the trust of the old crew and the loyal viewers. That's why Kevin got the call. But joining the show wasn't a red carpet welcome. Richard Trethewey, the show's top-plumbing expert, greeted him with Ashavel. Kevin, who had spent years in bank meeting rooms, was now digging ditches for sewer pipes. There were no cameras to make it look nice. This was real work, the kind that made your hands hurt. Richard didn't care that Kevin was the new host. He wanted to see if Kevin could handle the dirt, the sweat, the reality of the job. Every sore muscle was a test. And it wasn't just Richard testing him. Tom Silva threw Kevin straight into sawing and measuring. He didn't ask Kevin to pretend for the camera. He made him dove work for real. Tom believed a host of Hald know what he was talking about, not just read words someone else wrote. Kevin learned fast that if he wanted to belong, he had to earn it. He spent hours after filming learning how to use Sievery tool the right way. He measured boards over and over until he could do it without thinking. Viewers saw him struggle, mess up, and try again, and that made them cheer for him. Only a year after he started, something happened that nobody saw coming. Kevin was nominated for an Emmy in 2004 for Outstanding Service Show Host. He was shocked. Critics were too. Here was a guy who had never worked on TV suddenly standing next to veteran hosts. Bob Vila and Steve Thomas had spent years building up their reputations. Kevin did it in just one season. His honesty, curiosity, and willingness to be the learner instead of the expert hit home with people. The Emmy nomination proved was exactly who the show needed. But something else was changing inside Kevin. He realized he didn't just like talking about construction. He loved doing it. He wanted to pick up the hammer, lay the bricks, and feel the work in his hands. That thinking turned him from just another TV personality into a real partner to the experts. Instead of standing off to the side, he jumped in. When Richard showed how to run pipes, Kevin grabbed a wrench. When Tom explained how to frame a window, Kevin helped nail the boards. This made the show feel different. It wasn't just about teaching. It was about learning together. That approach carried into Asks This Old House, where he also became the host. But that wasn't enough for him. He joined the group that decides what goes in this old house magazine, helping shape the stories in print. And in the same year, he started as host. He helped it launch a third show called Inside This Old House. This one showed behind-the-scenes looks at the best projects they show ever did. The crazy part was that for a while, he was still working at Bank of America. He didn't fully quit his banking job until he knew this new career was solid. He was careful. He wasn't chasing TV fame. He wanted to build something that would last. But Kevin's careful way of doing things didn't mean he was afraid to speak. In fact, one day he did something that shocked almost everyone. During an interview, a reporter asked him what he thought about all the new DIY shows popping up on cable channels. Kevin didn't hold back. He called most of them crap. He said they were worthless and couldn't hold his attention for even a second. That one word, crap, spread a very hate, was like lighting a match in a dry forest. Fans were surprised and other TV hosts were mad. Instead of taking it back, Kevin doubled down. Heck, those shows were fake. They made people think you could redo a whole house in a weekend with hardly any money. And when people tried to copy that at home, they failed. Not because they weren't smart, but because these shows were lying. He said it wasn't right to trick viewers. That was when people realized Kevin wasn't just a host reading scripts. He really cared about truth and about helping people do things the right way. His comments started what he called a philosophy war. On one side were the fast, flashy showstat. Cared more about entertainment than raw skills. On the other was this old house where Kevin believed the main purpose was to teach, not just an urton. The fight got louder. WHEN HGTV stars fired back. They said Kevin didn't understand their audience and that people liked seeing quick makeovers, but Kevin wouldn't give up. He said if something looked too easy, it probably wasn't real. Even when everyone was arguing, there was one thing Kevin never brought up. Bob Vila. Bob had been the first host of this old house, and he left in 1989 after a huge fight over advertisements. He had signed deals worth $500,000 with other companies, and PBS told him to pick a side. He chose the money and that way's end, but Kevin never said a word about it. For over 20 years, he never mentioned Bob Vila in public. No praise, no toes, no blame. Some people thought that was smart because talking about it would just bring up old problems. Kevin always picked his battles carefully. But when it came to respecting old builders, Kevin never stayed quiet. He hated it when people made fun of the way houseware built 100 years ago. He said those builders were smart. They worked with what they had. There was no fiberglass insulation. They did the best they could with coal and plaster. Kevin also didn't agree with people who said big houses were always bad. He thought size didn't mean waste. A well-built big house could use less energy than a poorly built small one. He got into arguments over that, but he didn't care. He said judging without understanding was just lazy. All these strong opinions had a purpose. Kiev wanted this old house to stay different. He wanted it to feel real. He didn't want it to turn into another quick flip show, and his refusal to mention Bob Vila's also part of that. He wasn't going to drag the show's past into the present. Instead, he focused on moving forward. That focus was tested again one Norm. Abram retired in 2022. Norm had been there since the very first episode. For 43 years, he was the steady, calm carpenter everyone trusted. When Norm left, it felt like losing part of the show's heart. But Kevin didn't panic. He planned the change carefully. He brought in new experts, but he kept Norm's spirit alive. He did the same thing when Roger Cook had to step back because of his health. Roger had been with the show almost as long as Norm. Kevin brought in Jen Natata slowly so fans wouldn't feel like everything was changing overnight. Kevin also knew the way people watch TV was changing fast. When Bob Vila was hosting, they'd film long scenes that lasted 10 or even 12 minutes without a single cut. But modern viewers liked quicker edits. Kevin adapted. He made the segments shorter and tighter, but never shallow. He kept asking deep questions, so even if these scenes were faster, the lessons were still clear. He also helped the show expand into new places. In 2019, Hester did Clear Story, a podcast about how things work in homes. The show became a big hit and ranked among the top 1% offcasts. In 2021, he helped This Old House partner with Roku so people could watch every episode for free. All 1,500 episodes went online, plus a channel that streamed them non-stop, and he co-founded This Old Toolbox, a tool rental service to help viewers. Actuality, the projects they learned about. Kevin's way of handling all the set changes. Keeping the old spirit but welcoming new ideas helped the show survive when others faded away. It all saw him build a strong financial future. People were curious how much Kevin actually earned, while Bob Vila made about $200 per episode in the early days. Kevin was earning around $10,000 per episode. With over 380 episodes under his belt, that meant millions just from hosting. And he didn't stop there. His speaking gigs paid him up to $50,000 each. He spoke at big trade shows, taught companies about the future of building, and inspired thousands of people. He also used his old banking skills to invest. He had stocks worth over $5 million and earned around $1.5 million a year from them. He still lived in a Queen Anne Victorian house, just like the one that first got him on TV. That house wasn't a trophy. It was proof that he still believed in old homes, careful work, and doing things the right way. And now, after so many years, fans kept asking the same question. Is Kevin O'Connor leaving This Old House? Her rest answer? Kevin never planned a Levy show because he was tired or bored. The rumor started because people saw him doing more speaking events, launching a podcast, and making investments. Some people thought he was getting ready to walk away. But Kevin Haas said that while he's excited about growing his influence and trying new things, he doesn't see those projects as replacements for the show. their additions. He explained that this old house is still where his heart is. Hestel loves standing in old kitchens, asking why the floor beams were done that way. He still loves learning some new in every episode, and Hestel believes the show has more stories to tell. The reason he started doing more projects wasn't to get out of hosting, was to help more people understand that good building matters. So while he's busier than ever, Kevin isn't quitting. He's just adding more ways to teach and inspire. He has built something so strong that he doesn't have to choose between TV and the rest of his work. And that's why, even after 20 years, Kevin O'Connor isn't walking away. He's still there, standing in the sodist, ready to ask the next question. Kevin O'Connor has shown that you don't think to pick fame over truth. You can stand by your values, teach people what matters, and still build a life you love. His story isn't ending. It's growing one project at a time.